education on certain things, and important for us to also keep those conversations front and center. And that's what we do right here every day on the Situation Room on Kenya's biggest conversation. We're getting into a Healthy Friday conversation for this morning, and we'll be talking about one that many have discussed. Many want to speak out about it, but sometimes, unfortunately, don't. And far be it from us to not bring out some of these issues, and we'll be talking about that just in a little while. So, CT, for the final time this week, you got to remind us what to do when we want a mortgage, who to go to, how to go about it. Go.
Well, if you want a mortgage, you have many choices. But the choice I'm going to speak of is one that Diamond Trust Bank is offering. And the points that you need to consider are very simple. One, that the mortgage is available to anyone who is employed, self-employed, or in the diaspora. One. Two, that the mortgage can go up to 105% of what it is that you require. But that is if you are employed. If you're in the diaspora, you can get up to 80%. Three, the interest rate charge is a single digit, 9% for 10 years, 9.75. Yes, 9.75 is still single digit. There's just like a small percentage added
On top, single digit plus something. Okay.
Yes. Four, there are no hidden charges and there are no penalties if you pay in advance of the schedule. Now, the only way you can actually get to understand the details that I speak of in point form is if you either visit any Diamond Trust Bank, which means you have to get up and go there, or you let your fingers do the walking and you email mortgages@dtbafrica.com. Really fairly simple and straightforward. Then you'll be able to match your needs, the ability you have financially, with what it is that you want and what it is that is possible.
It's fantastic. You do the walking, or let your fingers do the walking, get into that mortgage with Diamond Trust Bank. Okay, so the conversation that we have for Healthy Friday this morning, going to help us out with that conversation on erectile dysfunction is oncologist Professor Peter Mungai, and he joins us in the hot seat of the Situation Room this morning. Good morning, Prof.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. I'm not an oncologist. I am a urologist. I'm a plumber. You know, plumbers, the ones that join
Fix
pipes?
the internal workings of things.
Well, every pipe we join.
Allow me to adjust myself. Let me adjust myself.
Correct. Yeah,
In this seat properly.
Surgical plumber.
Oh.
Did you say there's no pipe you cannot fix?
No.
Okay.
He has the tools for fixing pipes.
Your pipe ranges.
This is bound to be very interesting. Okay, buckle up because it's going to be a fun ride. Clearly, I have said you're in the hot seat of the Situation Room and already getting into a hot topic this morning. Urologist Professor Peter Mungai is here with us this morning. And even as we get into it, before we start, let CT welcome you with today's proverb. CT has a proverb.
Let's listen to his proverb.
Fantastic. The one for today is quite apt. But, let him share that and then you can interpret it for us. Is that all right?
Sure.
Okay.
No
When ants unite their mouth, they can carry an elephant.
Wow. That's a good one. Where is it from? You already say where.
Yes, this particular proverb is from the Republic of Burkina Faso, the land of honest people.
The land of a young leader. Yes,
Yes.
we've seen that. It's an interesting one. It just says if you join forces, you will always win. If you have a herd of buffaloes and they're attacked by one lion, the lion is of no value to itself. So you can lift anything. And that is Kenya's Harambee.
Yes. You have interpreted and given it context very well.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right. I mean, it's great to hear that. It's good that we all come together, we do something, isn't it? All right. Erectile dysfunction. It's in the heads of many. And sadly, because of it not being just a medical issue, it's a societal issue. It's a psychological issue. Many things happening at the same time. But let's just start off with definitions, as we often like to do in medical conversations. What is erectile dysfunction?
Erectile dysfunction, people should know, is the inability to have an erection sufficient for penetration during sexual intercourse.
Okay.
Not only must there be an erection, it must be sufficient for penetration. When that happens, the society will not grow. That's the end of that society, whether it is of animals or human beings. Without an erection, there are no human beings. Well, you can correct me on that because we've advanced technology, but you need an erection to have a race of all human beings. That is the most useful part of a man. It is the one that makes a man feel that he is a man. It is also the part that makes the woman feel he has a man.
Ah, okay.
So without that, the man becomes what many men are told after a certain age, bure kabisa. So when you reach being bure kabisa, it means you cannot provide, you cannot do anything. So all societies came from an erection, and when it fails, the man is devastated. All these talks about who I am, how powerful I am, mostly stem from that. And in my younger days, when I used to go to bars, when I found a man who boasted about how good he was at sexual function, I would give him my card because it meant he was the opposite.
Oh, okay. So this is where that whole thing comes in, that it is not just a medical issue, but it's a social issue as well.
Big social issue. And the reason why it's a big social issue, it is inborn in the man that he should be able to engage the female in the sexual act for the race to survive. So if your race can survive, your thinking is that you are finished. And nothing can happen if you are finished. So erectile dysfunction has been there with us for some time, from the times of Adam to today.
Okay.
It is not new.
Prof, how do you know that it's dysfunction and not a matter of mind? How do you know that it's gotten to the point where it is now dysfunction, physiological dysfunction, and not mind over matter?
Let me say that even that of the mind is still a dysfunction.
Okay.
Because if your mind can't get you to get an erection as a man, physiologically you didn't get an erection. But there are erectile dysfunctions that happen because your body has changed. The one predictable change that will happen is a man reaching the age of 40. I don't know why they said life starts at 40.
In this case, maybe not.
Life starts ending at 40 because 10% of men about the age of 40 cannot achieve an erection sufficient for penetration.
10%?
10%, 1 in 10.
That's a large number, isn't it?
It's a very big number, and in this country, because of what we do, because of many things we do wrong, we even see 30-year-olds whose erectile function is not sufficient for what they want to do with erection.
Doc, you talk in terms of the things that we do. You're starting to see 30-year-olds suffering from erectile dysfunction. What are these bad things that we do? One would beg to ask.
One of the things.
A 30-year-old has spoken.
Concerned, I'd say.
Yes. An erection is a very complicated process. An erection will happen because blood is flowing into the penis faster than it gets out. So that physiological process involves the brain. And the brain, there is the part of the brain that must be the cerebrum, the one that thinks hard. Then it goes to the part of the brain that coordinates things. Then it goes to the spinal cord. Then it goes to the penis. Now, things can go wrong from that. And a 30-year-old who is having a binge, and we say alcohol increases the desire but takes away the performance. So when you have a binge, you will have the desire to be with everybody, but you will be with nobody.
Okay, so look at the things that cause dysfunction, because now we're talking about medical issues now.
Sure.
What are some of the problems that we could actually face with some of these?
We said age is one of them. We said 10% at the age of 40, 30% at the age of 50, 60% at the age of 60, nearly 80% at the age of 70, and at the age of 80, you probably don't dream about it. Age is one. Two, diseases.
Okay.
Diseases like diabetes will give you erectile dysfunction after having had diabetes for more than 10 years. You will have diseases like high blood pressure. Having high blood pressure will cause erectile dysfunction either because of the drugs or the high blood pressure itself affecting the blood vessels that deliver blood to the penis. You also have people who have what we call hyperlipidemias. Hyperlipidemias are diseases where there is increased cholesterol in the blood, and that increase in cholesterol damages blood vessels. But to get an erection, you also need nerves, and the nerves can be damaged. Simplest of them is if you're injured in the spinal cord, then you will not be able to achieve an erection. If you are injured in the area of the pelvis, that might affect the erection. You also have nerve diseases, various nerve diseases that will affect the nerves going to the penis will cause this. You can also have trauma and one of the causes of such trauma in Kenya is the road traffic accidents. The RTAs that happen on Friday night because people you think you have an erection, but you won't reach where you're going because you get a fracture of the pelvis, you get a fracture of the spinal cord, and this is very common. Or the bike people, the border guy, he runs with his border without looking left or right, or he rams into somebody else and he gets injured in the spinal cord or the penis itself. And so many diseases will cause this. And then there is the one disease you started with, the quarrels at home. The being told how useless you are, you actually become useless. The psychological trauma, the loss of your mortgage. You talked about DTB giving you a mortgage. If your mortgage is lost and you can't now provide a home for your family, again, you won't get an erection. But if you get a fat check, then you could have a different situation.
But Professor, everything is related to an election, surely.
and an election as well in Kenya.
That's why I went to LR on it, yes. Because in all honesty, it's like something happens to your life, and for some reason you are not in the right frame of mind. It affects an erection.
It does. And the best way to know about that, if you're in a room and you're having a relationship with your partner and somebody fires a gun, the penis goes limp. So anything that scares you, anything that worries you, when you receive a phone call that somebody has died, the erection goes. So this is more than just nerves. It's more than just veins and blood vessels. It is something that is innate in you as a human being. It tells us you're functioning very well. When you're able to have an erection, you're functioning extremely well. As you function less and less better, you lose your erection.
Now, Doc, one would say the brain needs to work hard for hard things to happen, right?
Sure.
And as we talk about that, one would beg to the lifestyle that we have. You've talked about drinking, but there is also the other aspect of good nutrition. Talk about healthy foods to eat that would help. Do we have that also play a role?
It is the biggest part that you can change yourself without going to see me in the hospital. If you're going to eat a lot of sugars, you'll either get diabetes or clog your blood vessels. And it was sweet at 18, but at 32 you have no erection. So that's the first thing you need to think about. And then if you're lazy, at 18, you're just lying down in bed and waiting for mama to come and give you food. By the time you're 32, your blood vessels, your nerves in the pelvis will have given up on you. So you won't be able to get an erection. If you are going to smoke, this one we must say, if you're going to be a smoker, that's the best way to damage your blood vessels. I'm happy that people are not smoking as much, but if you go to places, even in Nairobi, if you go to the twilight places, you might see people smoking shisha. If you smoke shisha and you have a girlfriend, give her up. 'Cause you
Let her go.
Let her go.
But what then do I eat or drink
Yes,
to help
there are a
my
lot of
chaos?
things. First of all, when you wake up in the morning, exercise a little bit.
Okay.
Go and run around. That improves your blood flow. Then at the same time, during the day, avoid too much of starches, too much of sugars, too much of sweet things. Sweet things tend to charge you for what they give you. So those sweet things have a price, and you will pay for that price. Going to these places with fast foods, eating fast foods is one sure we're asking for an erection to disappear, because your blood vessels will
disappear fast.
And disappear very fast. So eat good food, eat a balanced diet, eat vitamins, and you will have your erection at 90.
Already there's a flurry of questions that are coming in, and I'm going to be looking at this kind of fixing, because you are a urologist.
Yes.
But very quickly, can you tell us what a urologist does before we come back to some of these questions that are being asked already?
Sure. A urologist, I said lightly, as a plumber. A urologist is somebody who deals with the male urinary tract and the female urinary tract as well. So we start from the kidneys, go to the bladder, passing through the ureters, go to the penis and outside. So that's the part that a urologist deals with. A urologist is a surgeon. It is a discipline of surgery that deals with the flow of urine and the flow of everything else that goes through the male urinary tract.
Okay, so if we look at what happens with women, if you don't ovulate, it's difficult for you to get, almost impossible for you to get pregnant.
Yes.
So are we saying that it's the same thing with men? If you do not have an erection, can you not then impregnate a woman?
There is no other possibility.
Okay.
This was God at his best. If you don't have an erection, how do you get those sperms out of the testes? Remember, most people don't even realize the sperms are going to be in the testes. They'll go back into the pelvis, because to make sperms, you need the testes to hang around outside the body. And then the sperms will enter the pelvis, enter the urethra, and then come out. So if they don't come out, if they remain inside you, they have no value to the rest of the world, maybe even to yourself.
Okay. You talked about 1 in every 10 men over the age of 40 suffering from erectile dysfunction today.
Yes.
Are those 1 in every 10 men coming to seek medical care?
No. And a lot of times, men are sometimes more cowards. And a lot of times you find, if you want to ignite a fire, ask women to do it, because they tend to be more brave than men. Men are scared of being seen to be weak. And so sometimes you find the man comes to your office and tells you, I have pain in the leg, I have pain in the nose, I have pain in the tummy. And then
Instead of hitting the nail on the head.
If he sees with his wife, he might say, she's the one who's been harassing me, and he doesn't say what she's been harassing him about. And sometimes he'll turn around and say, what did you say I should tell the doctor when I go to see the doctor?
So this is interesting. So when they do present
Yes.
themselves for to seek care, they don't come with this. They don't come with the actual problem that's bothering them.
A lot of times they won't tell you that's what the problem is.
Then how do you know?
Then you look at this man, and the things he's complaining about are very small and probably not real. And then when you realize that, then you know how to go approach it and ask it, and how is your erectile function? And then they say, oh, that is why I came.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's very scary for most men, and the younger they are, the worse it is. And then we have this society also, perhaps out of what we see in the movies, what we see on television. People think of sex as a sport. And so you see women who also demand more erection than is possible out of a man. And when the man is not able to have that, then he's massacred by whoever, psychologically that is. And so you find the young man who comes to you and he says that I can't have an erection. And he's 22, and you're asking, so what happens to you? You can't. He says, yes, my girlfriend says I'm not good enough. That's psychological erectile dysfunction, and people can end up not being able to have an erection because of the being told that you're not good enough.
Indeed. And this is why we're dealing with a twin problem here, that it's medical, physiological, at the same time, it's a social, psychological issue, because then it hinges directly on how you feel as an individual, but then also the individual that is connected with you in a relational manner also is affected. Whether you want to, however you want to look at it, whether it's a fly by the seat of your pants partner or somebody who's with you for the longest time as a man. Now, just as with women and the many things that you look on your social media or you hear from a friend and you say, well, I'm going to go ahead and try that, is the same thing that we see happening. I mean, just from reading, just looking at research and seeing what men have done or tried to do to deal with erectile dysfunction, short of going to the doctor's office and opening your mouth and saying this is the problem, we've seen a lot of sexual enhancement drugs come out into the market, one of them being the little blue pill. Is that recommended? And is it an answer, a solution to ED?
First of all, you need to know whether you have ED to start with. Maybe it's a fear you have. Maybe you have the wrong thing on the internet. In my days in UK, there was a man who, the internet was just new then, about 1995. There was a man who saw what you could do to enhance the size of your penis and the erection that you got. And the suggestion was that you can buy silicone from the hardware, squash it through the urethra, and you'd have an erection. So he did exactly that. A young man went and picked silicone and squashed it through the urethra into the bladder. Of course, it looked like an erection. It wasn't an erection. It was silicone solidifying and now making his penis look big. And it was a big surgical challenge to remove it. So the internet is a good source of information, but you've got to be worried about what kind of information that you get. Remember, it's a medical problem. Don't treat yourself, even if you are a doctor. Go ask somebody what the problem is, be evaluated and treated. And why do we want to say this? There are serious issues. A lot of people with diabetes are first diagnosed because they can't get an erection. So the first thing that tells you have a problem, that you have diabetes, is the lack of an erection. Blood pressure, the same thing. And the worst thing of all of this is we talked about blood vessels. And men who get erection problems also have a high propensity to get heart attacks. So if you have a problem with getting an erection, you must be evaluated. 60% of men who have had heart attacks have had erectile dysfunction. So when you don't have an erection, it could tell you that next week you could have a heart attack because the penis blood vessels are much smaller than those of the heart. So the first ones to be affected are those of the penis. So when the next line is those of the brain and those of the penis. So you need to be checked then, and there are interventions that could be done to prevent you from going through those vascular problems. If you have nerve problems, we may be able to do this. Even during the days of COVID, sometimes people realize they had COVID because they had an erectile dysfunction. So don't just go to the pharmacist, and this country is notorious for that, and ask for an erection-enhancing drug. And the pharmacist wants to make a sale, and he gives you a drug. And that is not the way. You need to be checked and evaluated. As urologists, we are able to evaluate people who have erectile dysfunction. And even if you don't go to a urologist, you can go to any doctor. We've trained our undergraduates and even postgraduates ways of being able to identify erectile dysfunction and to know what to do. There are blood tests to be done, there are ultrasound scans to be done, and this is what you need to have done before you do the pill. So that you may take the pill and it doesn't work. So what do you do? You thought you couldn't get an erection, and maybe it was your bank that made you not have an erection. So how then?
Or should you take the pill and give it to the bank?
Yes.
Prof, in your experience,
Yes.
because you are a teacher
Yes.
and you are a practicing surgeon, do you witness an increase in the number of men who come to you with erectile dysfunction issues?
And I
Indeed.
think, Doc, just to ride on what City is asking, because you're talking about 10%, and I've just gone briefly to just check on the numbers, and you're talking about almost 3 million men
Yes.
potentially having this. So are we seeing the numbers increase?
The numbers are increasing. In 1995, like I said, I was in UK. That is when I think it was August, when Pfizer announced the development of sildenafil, which we've always called Viagra.
Viagra. Yeah.
In 1 month, they had sold $1 billion. Because people had for the first time an answer they could take without having to struggle. Now, the number of people with erectile dysfunction is staggering. There are those who say, and that's the smallest number. There are those who don't say. There are those who go to the pharmacy. The number is increasing for a number of reasons. One is lifestyle. One is challenges of life. The other one is diseases like majority of men with prostate cancer. Treatments for many cancers will take away your erectile function. The drugs we use, the radiotherapy that we give, the chemotherapy that we give will take away your erectile function. And then we have the trauma we've talked about, and all these things that happen to people in everyday life affect their erectile function. Because I've been in this country for a while, there are people who would like to say they're not affected. The way I see it, there is no man who is not going to be affected. So all the 25 million Kenyans will one day be affected.
Oh my goodness, how's that for a bit of a red light danger call at this moment? Well, let's come back and look at maybe open that up just a little bit more, and then also start to look at treating the dysfunction. If there's treatment for it available, cure to the dysfunction. Professor Peter Mungai is a urologist, and he's here for a Healthy Friday conversation on erectile dysfunction. Uncomfortable as it may be, clearly from the numbers, not something that we can avoid in terms of talking about. We continue when we come back from this break. Don't go away.
Peekaboo! Ready to come out of your hiding closet this school break holiday? The Standard Media Group is taking you to the ultimate fun day spree. That's right, the Club Kiboko Kids Festival is back! It's going to be bigger, louder, and more fun than ever. Are you really going to miss a spectacular family fun day at Ulinzi Sports Complex Langata on April 12, 2025? I don't think so. Join hundreds of kids just like you for thrilling games, crafts, live performances, and so much more. Get your tickets now before it's too late. Only 500 shilling for kids and 300 shilling for adults on tickethub.co.ke. Hurry, tickets are selling fast. Bring your brothers, sisters, friends, and parents, and let's have some fun bonding day.
Chunga tickets usikuishe.
The Club Kiboko Festival. Miss it, miss out.
Moboki ni village girl, wacha tuseme village girl, amezaliwa Ushago. Nilikuwa naona mambo ya salon na kinyozi is easier. Kauliza one of the barbers kama unaweza fanya hiyo kazi, akaniambia it's something simple, unaweza hata shika machine uone Video yangu ya kwanza yenye nilifanya nilikuwa nanyoa na nikaanza kudance kidogo. Hiyo video ikaenda viral. Nikaanza zile za what can I do to support those people on the street. By them I'm not being paid for that. Ni ile tu kwenda kuwatengeneza hivyo and to open a school. Yeah. Ya babas, so babas wanaweza kuja kujifunza.
Still have erectile dysfunction. Where is that? So I'll just go through a number of them and then we can pick on them. Chris says, well, erectile dysfunction used to affect the old mostly. These days it's prevalent even youngers in their 20s to 30s due to some funny dietary preferences. The youth prefer fast food so that they can go for the drugs. And so we'll talk about some of those drugs as well. Talk about obesity being a cause of this, Tusiogope Kusema. And of course, a question from Agola, why are the numbers increasing? And of course, the Viagra question comes in again in terms of there are a lot of folks who will just go and buy it and pop the pill without actually asking what it is going on. Hoping that we are taking notes here. A friend as a pharmacist says that young men are the biggest consumers of Viagra. It's akin to what young women do. We saw that study that over the weekend between Friday and Monday morning, the highest number of the morning after pill, for example, is consumed by girls between the ages of, young women between the ages of 17 and 30. Highest. Closely followed then by young men who are going into the pharmacy to buy Viagra. These are worrying numbers. But then all of this can be pointed back to erectile dysfunction. Now, looking at some of these questions that are being asked here, Prof, why do we see just the high numbers? Can it be pointed to some of the factors that you mentioned?
Indeed, and our society needs to address ourselves to this. First of all, the expectation that a man should be rich, should be physically big, and should be very good in bed are expectations that very few men meet. You may have one of them, but having all the three could be a challenge. And so the society expectations, or the expectations of, because it's taken as a sport, it's a pleasure, that's not what it was in the past. So a lot of the people who have erectile dysfunction may only need to be counseled that is not erectile dysfunction. There is also what people call erectile dysfunction. Sexual dysfunction and erectile dysfunctions are not the same thing.
Oh, do tell.
You have erectile dysfunction, which is inability to raise an erection that is sufficient for penetration.
Okay.
But there are other sexual disorders. People come to us with premature ejaculation, for instance. It takes 30 seconds or even seeing a woman for the person to ejaculate. That is not an erectile dysfunction.
Okay.
That is an ejaculatory disorder, and then we can deal with that. There are those who also cannot ejaculate, and they think it's erectile dysfunction. So those need to be seen differently. And so sexual dysfunction and erectile dysfunction are not the same thing. And therefore, if you use medicine and if you go and take Viagra, and your challenge is premature ejaculation, you don't make it better. Whatever number of pills that you're going to have, they will not change the premature ejaculation.
Okay.
If the problem is lack of ejaculation, even if you take 300 milligrams of Viagra, you'd end up dead, but no erection.
Doc, let me ask, acha niulize ni talk.
Please.
So, Doc, there is talk in town in terms of how long it takes, because you find a majority of the young men who pretty much go into buying the blue pill is because their significant other is demanding for an hour plus for them to, hence the reason why they want to go for the blue pill. At that point, as a urologist, what's your advice to them?
It's basically just canceling those people. If somebody is asking you for sex for 30 minutes, you even if you are the biggest animal on earth, even if you're an elephant, that is not humanly possible. So the expectations that are beyond But then you might as well use a stick around the penis for normal erection. And that's a big challenge, particularly our universities. We see the young people at the universities thinking that you can have that. We just saw a girl the other day, the daughter of a prominent person. She was sleeping with 5 men in 1 hour. Now, what are you expected to achieve? Sex is supposed to be something disciplined. Sex is useful only when it is used in the right context. Not when it is used to show your prowess, not when it is used to show you are stronger than other men. That's not what the society expects of you. And so, many of these people don't have erectile dysfunction, especially the 17-year-olds who come to me and ask them, so what do you do with your erection? You haven't reached the marriage age yet, so why do you want to get a better erection? And then even parents become challenging. I see parents coming to me and telling me that a 5-year-old is not erecting.
A 5-year-old?
Yes.
Okay.
How do they determine it's not erect?
No, because a lot of boys have an early morning erection. You see it. So now, if you don't see it, you imagine that they don't erect.
Right.
And so, don't give children
some
Viagra.
pressure. Oh my God. So on that note then, because when we talk about regulation, usually regulation will do one of two things. It'll make sure that people use things in the right way. And the other thing that it will do is that when you go there, if there are regulatory processes in place, then it will push people to come to the likes of yourself to find out what the problem is. So I can deny the sale of this drug so that you will then be forced to go see a doctor instead of self-prescribe or self-diagnose, or it'll make sure that you're using this in the right way. Where are we looking at regulation here? For Viagra, for example, or over-the-counter medication?
I mean, that's an important conversation. I'm looking at the pharmacists to start with, and the people they employ. They'll probably sell you morphine if you like.
If you had enough.
if you can pay for it. And that is why the government has put strict regulations on how you purchase morphine. The same thing that happens to anti-cancer drugs. Are you going to go and purchase anti-cancer drugs over the counter? The drugs used for erectile dysfunction are not OTC drugs. They are not over-the-counter drugs.
They're prescription.
They're prescription drugs. And if you give these young people prescription drugs without knowing why they are coming to you, because they probably... We have financial issues.
Right.
As a Kenyan, you don't want to go and pay a consultation and buy drugs. So you'd like the shortcut of making your diagnosis and go. Now, you make your diagnosis, and your challenge at the age of 22 is that you have leukemia. Because of leukemia, your blood vessels are blocked, and so either you don't get an erection or you get too big an erection. Now, you continue taking your Viagra or the other ones. We don't even use Viagra as much these days, while your disease process is eating you up. Somebody should have known you have leukemia early enough and taken you through the right treatment. Somebody should have known you have diabetes. Somebody should have known you have prostate cancer at the age of 39. It happens in this country. So if you get the prostate cancer, it's not treated, it's going to kill you before the girlfriend gets pregnant. So get somebody to see you and look at you and decide what's the best treatment.
Okay. So the doomsday philosophy is what hits a lot of people when you think that something might be wrong with the pipes, right?
Yes.
And then going to see a doctor essentially would elongate that process, whereby you think, well, he's just going to tell me that things are, are bad and there's nothing we can do about it. Can you demystify that or debunk that? Yeah. Is there something that can actually be done about the dysfunction? Can it be treated? And can people come back to regular function?
Once we have made your diagnosis, we can almost treat everyone who needs treatment for erectile dysfunction. We have psychological treatments. We talked about the sex therapists, who may not necessarily be urologists, psychologists. Some psychologists and psychiatrists are very good at this. Then you have the treatment of the underlying condition. Forget about treating the erectile dysfunction. If you have diabetes, correct the blood sugar levels. If you have high blood pressure, treat the blood pressure. all those conditions must be treated first before you take the pill. Then if you do need the pill, then we will give you the pill, and that will correct you. If the pill can't correct you, because this is the answer the pharmacist is not going to do, we have surgical approaches. We can operate on the penis and give you an erection, or we can give you gadgets that will maintain your erection. So it just doesn't go to you swallowing a pill and getting a fast heart rate and not getting the erection, which sometimes happens to a lot of people. You have a very fast heart rate, you don't have a good erection, and so your girlfriend is scared you're going to die.
So, Doc, we talk about, especially around the young men, we have now the blue pill, but there is also the other aspect of masturbation and watching pornography. Do these, in the long run, affect erectile dysfunction? Is it one of the causes that people should look at?
Masturbation is a little bit different because there was one time we were in the US and as urologists, and there was one urologist who dealt with erectile dysfunction a lot of times and masturbation, and he stood in a podium and there were about 5,000 of us, and he said, whoever has ever masturbated, please raise your hands. And a good proportion raised their hands, close to 90%. And then he said, the rest of you are liars. So masturbation is not necessarily a very bad thing, particularly in places like military practice, where sexual function is limited. Limited and takes a backseat. But it is not good to have it as the only way, the only thing you do from morning till evening. So that stops you from being a normal human being, and it affects your productivity and therefore your ability to get an erection in future. But however, masturbation does, if anything, masturbation can probably lead you to having premature ejaculation, which we said is different from a lack of an erection. So the watch of pornography destroys your mind completely because you get hooked to things. Remember, the sexual act is 90% in the head. The sexual organs are only involved in 5 to 10% of the act. The rest of it takes place in your head. So if your head is lost in the sea of thoughts, then you can't even see the person who is supposed to make you have an erection. Because some of it is visual, some of it is eyes, some of it is touching. If all those is removed by what you're doing every day,
Screen time,
then you don't have an erection. Not because your body doesn't have the ability to have an erection, but you've damaged all your sensation for it.
Right.
So people should be careful with it. That's why even the church and the mosques talk about you being careful about this. I'm not going to go into the moral issues of it. I'm going into how it affects your physiology.
Okay. So we're talking about therapy. And whether that therapy is physical or psychological, that there are ways in which this can be overcome. Can we look at some more of those therapies and see, so that we can have an understanding to say that, I mean, nobody's going to come in and cut anything off, but there are things that you can do to ensure that you can get over this. But before you do that, the issue of weather has come in, and the question of, do weather patterns, heat, not heat, affects, how, things would function?
People have looked at this. We were at one time in Egypt, we were looking at the weather, and we thought the one thing that makes Egyptians have ED more than us is their smoking. I don't know whether you've been to Egypt.
Yes. There's this there's a permanent cloud over.
Yes. So the weather is not the big issue. It is what you do with the weather.
Okay.
So if you're in temperate climates or you're in hot climates, our northeastern citizens of this country are not any different from those who come from the mountainous regions of high altitude. So the weather is not a problem. But you talked about the treatment, and treatment is possible. Treatment is something we do. Some people have hormone issues. The reason why you are not getting an erection is you don't have testosterone. So if testosterone in your circulation is not sufficient, then even if you take Viagra, 200 milligrams, 300. It's not going to work.
Yep.
The first thing we need to do is to correct your hormone levels. If you have too much estrogens, and some men can have diseases, you can have cancers, you can have other things that produce a lot of estrogen in you, then you lose your erection. And then the one thing that I must not forget while I'm on this station, because I've done this for years and still doesn't happen. Our boys at the age of 14, 12 to the age of 20 are losing their testes.
Sorry?
They lose their testes because they get testicular pain and they get testicular torsion. Testicular torsion is a condition in which a young man's testis twists and dies. And this is a condition that people are not able to... 95%, we just had our conference in Eldoret last week, 95% of the boys presenting with testicular torsion lose their testes. Even when they present themselves to hospital, because the people in the hospital don't realize it fast enough, because you have only 6 hours. Now, a lot of times you lose one testis, and then you lose the other one, because you do the same thing you did the last time.
I'm sorry, Prof.
Yes.
How is this happening? What's happening between the boys of 14 and 20? What's happening that this would occur?
At that time, there are many boys whose testes will usually twist around its axis. And it strangulates itself. And people get pain, and they're not taken to the hospital. And particularly in high schools, and I'm saying we must address our principals of high schools. They tell the boy, you go home on Saturday. By the time he comes on Saturday, the testis is lost. Or they go to a doctor who doesn't examine and gives a painkiller, and the testis is lost. This is a big reason why a lot of our people, they can still get an erection, but they will not get children if they lose their testes. And this is something we must address as a nation.
What causes it?
It's a lot of boys have abnormalities of the testes that will make the testes twist.
It's an abnormality you're born with.
You're born with, but it's very common. It's so common that every 3-4 days I see one.
But are they not checked? Because I remember, when you have a baby, the doctor, the pediatrician is in the thing.
But it happens during
the
the everyday activity. You're walking around, the boys
riding a bicycle, playing football,
or even having a dream at night. And then the testicular pain comes, and he's told, you go to hospital tomorrow. No, that's not the time to go. You need to go to the hospital
now.
I've seen all sorts of people, from a lecturer with me at the University of Nairobi whose boy came 3 days later.
Okay, 3 days later, post what? What occurrence is this?
The testes are twisted.
I understand, but is it going to cause significant enough pain? And it's not just on a twitch.
It is so severe that if you're not, the boys are given a lot of painkillers. The pain-killing effect of the drug is such that in 24 hours the pain will be gone, but the testes will also.
The damage has been done.
Damage has been done. If we need a campaign by the urologists. That's what we said in Eldoret. We need a campaign by the urologists to tell school headmasters, the boy who is having pain in the testes has not had a sexual debut